Hello there. Welcome to my presentation. I will talk today about comparing synchronous online education with other instructional methods at California community colleges and the impact on student retention rates. So I do have an interest to investigate if really a phase makes a difference in higher education. My name is Claudia Tornsaufer, and I teach online courses for San Diego Community College, and I'm teaching for the non-credit side of our district, the continuing education side. If you have any question, don't hesitate to email me to cltonsaa@sdccd.edu. And as you can tell, maybe this is my research I'm right now conducting, and I'm looking forward to share some of my findings with you today. And so you can focus better on my slides, I will turn out now the video. There are several trends in today's higher education which led me to my interest of investigating this particular topic. For example, in 2002 we had 1.6 million online students. By 2010 it had increased to the number of 6.1 million students, and students who at least take one online course, and some of course are taking entire degrees, pursuing a degree in an online educational setup. This is almost a 400% increase in compared to 1.2% growth in higher education overall. So really we do see a general trend. I think all of us in higher education have seen this plentiful. There's many statistics like this demonstrating the same picture, that online education is not only here to stay, but it's very rapidly increasing. We do hear also predictions about how it's going to increase. Within the next 10 years, more than 50% of higher education is expected to be delivered via online courses. And it turns out that the majority of presidents in higher education, and this sample size was really considerable, and so it can be considered to be representative. So 1,055 presidents in the United States responded to a survey, and 51% have expressed their desire to expand their institutions' online course offerings. There might be two reasons. One reason, presidents are to be found very tech-savvy individuals. They are individuals, they not only have smartphones, they also have multiple computers, a work computer, a personal computer, iPads. They use a lot of different applications and are really feeling quite comfortable with the new technologies out there. So yes, they have usually seen technology at work, and yes, they do feel confident that this technology can be successfully used in higher education. But there's another reason why maybe presidents are pushing towards online education. And of course, we all have experience, especially in higher education and in the community colleges in California. Since I'm here in California, we have seen how the state budgets are dwindling and how it translates into, for the community colleges here in California. Since 2008, I think all of our institutions have experienced really monumental drastic cuts. And of course, in this climate, online education has been found to be cost-saving. So distance learning and technology infrastructure have been hailed as one of the leading potential cost reductions. And then I often hear colleagues, so how's that? And of course, again, there has been a lot of research how really online education can save costs. And that's, of course, self-explanatory why then presidents are advocating for an increased online course offering at their institutions. So here are some of the main reasons found by Twig in 2003. So the obvious reason is, of course, there's less cost for facilities. Most institutions do have some costs still regarding computer lab, etc., but it's of course reduced quite considerably. Keeping students' enrollment the same while reducing the instructional resources devoted to the course. I'm not sure if all of you are aware, in the community colleges, the highest expense for any district or college are the personnel costs. And in California community colleges, most colleges try to keep costs to 85% of the expenditures to be for personnel. As soon as it goes above 85%, usually colleges run into trouble that they have to tap further into their reserve costs, etc. So of course, by keeping the enrollments the same while reducing personnel, how do they do this? Well, you increase students in some classes, the student enrollments, and you don't hire an extra teacher. So courses are growing really rapidly, and maybe an online instructor is is allowed to have an aide in the course, but of course aides are less expensive than a full professor. Another way, transferring some tasks to technology-assisted activities. We all have seen it as online instructors. Blackboard allows us to automate the tests and with automated responses for correct answers of the students and incorrect answers. And of course, one of the things that the for-credit colleges are now employing is a technique where they hire a course developer who develops maybe a 101 biology course or an ESL course, and then multiple teachers are teaching the same course. But I think we all have seen this in higher education, many different ways how online education can save costs. The problem with this, of course, we also have, many of us experienced, well, there's several problems. One of the problems is that we have in recent years paid more and more attention not just to access, especially in the community colleges. In the 60s it was all about giving access to higher education. Now more and more the discussion has turned towards completion. Well, we have in 2003, and there are some newer statistics also confirming, so we have a 69% degree completion rate for all undergraduate students within the United States. When we look at, and some of you might have seen OECD statistics, where, and I'm happy to send them to you if you email me, where we have also dropped in the comparison with other industrialized countries, and when educational completion rates are compared, we have dropped in math, we have dropped in science, in reading, and writing abilities. So our students in higher education are ranking now, I think in math it's 32nd place, in science it's 34, and so really disappointing completion rates, and so now we are more concerned. How this plays out in our online setting is that if our general graduation completion rates are already not satisfying, then usually most colleges have even a lower success rate in their overall online education courses. So here, this is just my district, San Diego Community College District, and this is pretty representative what I have seen in all of the 112 community colleges in California. So you roughly have 10% less success rates in online education. So when we see that we are going to soon have more than 50% of higher education delivered via online courses, but we have a lower success rate than we already have in general higher education courses, then this is of course a problem we have to address. We have to find the best possible way how to improve success rates in online courses. Excuse me. Problem number 2 has to do with our students. As I said, college presidents are usually pretty tech-savvy individuals. They have higher degrees. They have dealt with a lot of technology. So they feel very comfortable with technology. And yes, they do advocate and say that online courses offer an equal educational value compared with courses taken in a classroom. Unfortunately, the general public doesn't share that same confidence. And several researchers have found that, well, we all know that there are good on-campus courses and bad on-campus courses, and so that's true for any type of online course, of course, too. But somehow a negative experience in online education seems to ingrain in students' minds. So one bad experience and they will not give a second time a chance to another online course. And that, of course, represents a problem. We have, I think, in higher education become more sophisticated, the type of courses we deliver and how we are delivering it. But this is a fairly recent study, so in 2011, and it's unfortunate that still 71%, that's more than 2/3 of the general public doesn't have the same confidence than college presidents in online education. So this is, of course, concern. Problem number 3 has to do with really the isolation factor. Online education, of course, is now a reality. It's never going to disappear. Now it's just our job to figure out our best way how to deliver it. But there's another reality in most type of online courses, the sense of isolation our students are experiencing in online courses. And researchers, over and over have repeated that, yes, the student's sense of distance can threaten their ability to learn. So somehow we have to develop tools that are really countering this sense of isolation in online courses. And like I again said, so the negative online learning experiences seem to ingrain themselves permanently, and that's the scary word in this citation, permanently in the minds of students. And again, this was a considerable study and with notable findings. Problem number 4 we see in many online courses, and I have to say not all. When we started to offer online courses, many of you were then around and you taught online, and you know there were a lot of publishers. They saw the opportunity. They offered e-packs, and teachers would upload them to whatever platform, if it was WebCT or Blackboard or Moodle. And so, yes, the main mode of learning and interacting in an online course was in those days mainly through reading and writing. Nowadays, it's really already changed really greatly. So I'm very happy to see this change, that more and more online instructors use blogs or social media or little videos. Camtasia is one of the tools often used. And OTC always has offered many suggestions on how to change really to get asynchronous online courses away from being so text heavy. Because being text heavy is just an absolute, again, problem for our higher education delivered via online. Because, well, look at the statistics, 51% of high school graduates in the United States do not have the reading skills they need to succeed in college. So most community college students who come in really need, in the first year of their college time, remediation courses just to catch up in their reading and comprehension ability. And of course, that has a huge implication for our main online courses. So if we believe, together with the factor of isolation, if we believe that we can engage our students enough through those text-based forums, we are mistaken. We are running in trouble with 51% of our higher education students. There's also a lot of gap in the research of online education. I'm mentioning here two or three researchers who have been really pioneers regarding social integration and retention in higher education. Tinto's research goes back to, I put here 1993, but this Vincent Tinto has been researching social integration in higher education since 1970s. And if you just look any of his studies up, there's always several thousands of citations that researchers refer to him. So these are the gurus of retention research. And they always have argued that, yes, any student characteristics such as age and gender and ethnicity also have an impact on students' retention and success in any type of courses, if it's delivered any medium. Of course, their main research was done when we didn't have yet the type of online courses we are discussing today. So, of course, we do need to update our research on retention regarding online courses. How does this play out? Their findings, how does this really play out in our online courses and our settings? So there's very limited studies. As a matter of fact, when you Google, even Scholar Google gives you a lot of articles. Many of them are not peer-reviewed, which we always desire in research. We also don't find really studies which are really truly research-based. So research-based, what I mean with this is that there's a research question, that there was some sort of data collection and some form of analysis. Might it be qualitative or quantitative? So in either case, most of the literature on this, especially CCCConfer type of online course, is very limited out there. So I mentioned here a few studies which have been absolutely incredible, Skylar or Amelito Enriquez. And Enriquez is a fabulous study, but all of the sample sizes are rather small. So there's we have studies where there are 35 students, 44, in Skylar I believe there were 44 participants. So very meaningful finding, but unfortunately not large scale enough to be representative for all type of courses and for all type of higher education courses. Like I said, so the students value in general online education because of the convenience and the flexibility. Of course, today we have a lot of students who, because of family background and they have work schedules, etc., we don't have anymore that many full-time students, especially in the community colleges. Our students who enter higher education do have a lot on their plate. So they are trying to really find ways how any pursuits of to pursue their educational goals, how it can fit into their lives. Because yes, they have, some of them have children, they have busy work schedules. So yes, online education seems to be very attractive for many, and we have all argued with our administrators why we also want more online teaching to be seen. And Amelito Enriquez here in 2010 found that in his research, yes, that the creation of the virtual classroom space through the use of a synchronous online environment, such as EluminateLive or CCCConfer, how we call it in the community colleges in California, reduce the transactional distance and improve the quality of the educational experience of online students in an online introductory circuit analysis course. As a matter of fact, Enriquez compared on-campus students with students who got the same course material at the same time but via CCCConfer. And it was very significant how well the students did, the CCCConfer students. Results were absolutely showing that there was no difference to on-campus. So very different the statistics than I showed you earlier, where yes, the completion rates usually in online is so much lower than in general higher education courses. So very meaningful findings. The purpose of my research really, as I will conduct it in the following months, will be to compare on-campus courses, as we have researched for several decades, with the asynchronous online courses, which are of course self-paced, and the instructor and students are separated by time and distance, and the contact and interaction between not just teacher and students, but also between peers is via, most of the time, discussion boards or blogs, which usually are also written blogs. Very, very recently, some few online instructors are employing such as video blogs, and but usually asynchronous online courses is, as I earlier said, more written type of interaction. And I'm talking about courses which are delivered via Blackboard, Moodle, WebCity, but there are many other learning platforms. And I will compare the student retention rates of students who are taking an online course, but where there is online courses that are offering the synchronous type of online features. Facilitated, of course, in our 112 community colleges in California via CCCConfer. And this is, if some of you might not have seen it yet, but you're of course looking at myself on this particular presentation, but the interface of CCCConfer, but you actually are seeing it right now. The purpose of my study, which will be a quantitative study, is to measure the difference, if any, in effectiveness of asynchronous, synchronous online courses with on-campus courses at 112 California community colleges by comparison of student retention rates. And I will look, because this is really research we are lacking and missing, it's together with the factors of ethnicity, gender, and age. So my interest will be to see if the interaction that can be facilitated by CCCConfer in real time, that if it can really change the interaction. And of course, usually during all my online courses and my CCCConfer sessions, I do use my video and I leave it on. So unfortunately I will be again turning it off. So my research questions, I will addressing 4 of them. So in general, I will look at retention rates and if there are any significant differences in retention rates for on-campus asynchronous and synchronous students. Then I will look at the 3 different factors. The second question will address the question of ethnicity. You might see here that certain ethnicity groups are missing. I will drop the ethnicity groups which represent less than 1% in the community colleges. So that includes, for example, Pacific Islanders. Then we have the question of gender, and the last one will be age groups. And each of these will be investigated under the lens of a particular model, the model by Garrison, Anderson, and Archer. They started developing this model of the community of inquiry starting in 2000. And in 2000 they were actually not quite yet so sure if this model can be confirmed, and only through several other researchers testing of this model it was confirmed really in 2003 the first time, but really sure-footed in 2007. They do see several different type of presences. Maybe I should show you first this slide. So there are different presences in the interaction we see in online courses. So one addresses the cognitive presence, which is the extent to which learners are able to construct and confirm meaning through sustained reflection, and of course the discourse. And the discourse is really what Tinto already said in 1970s. The discussion among peers and with the instructor is really constructing also knowledge. And here Garrison, Anderson, and Archer are confirming this in their research that this is still true, of course, in an online learning session. The teaching presence is, of course, that instructors, we are designing and facilitating the course, but we are also in an online course, like we all have done in on-campus courses, we are directing the cognitive social processes of our students. And yes, that is for the sole purpose of realizing personally meaningful and educational, worthwhile learning outcomes. The social presence is the ability of learners to project themselves socially to a platform, and that's where, of course, I will also focus on the different student demographics, where I will investigate, is this social presence different for different ethnicity groups or age groups, or for female and male students. And then the retention rates, again, I will compare asynchronous, synchronous, and on-campus. And already Garrison, Cleveland, Innes, and Fong confirmed 10 years after they developed this model that yes, teaching, let me quick get my pointer. So teaching presence and social presence have a significant influence on the cognitive presence of our students. And of course, teaching presence has in general an effect on social presence. When I say here social presence is the interaction with participants, and that's not just the student to the teacher, but really CCCConfer is one of the few technologies where students seem to be more engaged also with each other. So the interaction, that's why I wrote here participants, and not just student-teacher, but it's also student-student interaction. And that's the significant, I think, difference we see in CCCConfer. This is another way of demonstrating this model, which is maybe a little bit more complicated. So it doesn't matter which type of online course we are delivering, if it's asynchronous or synchronous, we do want several different ways of interaction. So we have here the student-student interaction, which, yes, that collaborate communication and the discourse, the discussion about a topic that really constructs knowledge. But we also, of course, want to see a lot the student-teacher interaction, and that's where we have several qualitative studies about online education where students are always talking about the teacher's immediacy, that they email and they're so used nowadays to get instant text messages back, and then they realize there's such a delay response now with the instructors that sometimes 48 hours, some teachers said 72 hours. So in a way, yes, teachers have the right to have their weekends, of course, but when it's at all times with such a delay reaction, it really doesn't help the community of inquiry, the social integration of our students in an online learning environment. And the social integration since 1970s has been proven to be one of the predictors that can show successful retention or success of our students in higher education. So really a vital part. I can show you some other research that confirms all I have been saying now earlier, and there's a lot of studies. So here again, Tinto, there's Endo and Harpel, but I could have given you a long list. So students who report higher levels of contact with peers and faculty also demonstrate higher levels of learning gain and retention over the course of their stay in college. And this interaction is not necessarily always about the subject. Tinto was very successful in proving that even when peers go in the evening hours together to the movie theater, that those students who do that will most likely succeed better in their educational goals. So very striking that this seems to be still true also for online courses. And yeah, and it seems to be one of the greatest impacts we see. So student isolation is a huge problem, like I earlier said, in online education. Michael Moore, who developed another online model or another model about transactional distance that addresses really the factor of interaction in an online course. And transactional distance, he describes more that psychological space where really the interaction does happen. It's not the geographical distance he talks about, it's the psychological and social distance. And he gave it this name, transactional distance. So when there's really, when we have too great of a transactional distance, students will not succeed. Swan found student-instructor interaction enhanced the student retention, self-motivation, and the pass rate, all we are so worried about. And one of the greatest challenges for each mode of distance education is how to best engage students in discussion with the instructors and with each other. The social presence. So learning, as I mentioned before, is a social activity, and the more social it is, the greater the success rates. Berge in 1995 made a very important point. We have used a lot of different technology to mediate educational social interaction. Even in the on-campus courses, if I use eyeglasses that's actually technology. I'm sure when eyeglasses came out, people said, oh, I cannot see my teacher's eyes because I do need that psychological link through the eyes with my instructor. But we have gotten so used to that we don't even often register that somebody wears eyes. And that has come true with our interaction via phone, via email even already. So when we first started interacting via email, it was awkward. And so more and more, the longer technology is around, the more we start forgetting. Unfortunately, that's not yet quite true with online education. Yes, students feel it from day one of the semester to the last that this is an online course. And I believe that we as online instructors have to find tools like CCCConfer which allow us to really have those students forget that there's technology-mediated interaction happening. And I wish all of you would be live in this session so we could actually right now interact. But this will happen, of course, at the OTC in June. Social presence in the digital space of e-learning can engage learners' collaboration. And again, this is a French researcher, Gu, in 2012 has also found that this community of inquiry model of Garrison and Archer is still true today. And many researchers have found that synchronous online learning, yes, is showing an impact, a positive impact onto our transitional distance learning in online education. And web conference tools support increased interaction. And so it's one more reason for us all to use technologies such as EluminateLive, or there's also Adobe Connect, or, well, but any of these kind of synchronous online learning tools that facilitate really this type of interaction. So altogether, it's again so vital to investigate a greater number of students, to have more large-scale studies, to see across all the various demographic student diversity over maybe even an extended period of time, that really how education can be improved in the next 10 years before we have more than 50% already delivered via online. And the social presence, yeah, it's so important, but let me move here on. So I will be looking again at on-campus, synchronous, asynchronous retention rates compared by factors of age group, ethnicity, and gender. And my data, if I may show you. So my data, I will receive my data from the State Chancellor's Office here in California. So this will include all 112 California community colleges, and I will look at one particular semester, and I will be looking forward to show you those findings in the near future. And it will be a quite a massive study, considering the numbers. So we have in the community college system in California, it's, by the way, except China, but outside of China, it is the largest system of higher education, so the 112 community colleges in California. So we have, of course, multi-campus colleges, we have rural, we have urban colleges, we have single colleges. I mean, there's all types of colleges we have in California. And so looking at such great numbers of student retention rates will really reflect very well which type of delivery will be more comparable to the on-campus delivery we have used for so long. And the methods, I will, if some of you are interested, so I will use two-way and four-way factorial analysis of the variance, or also called ANOVA, and I will also conduct Donferoni post hoc tests. And this will brings me to the end of my presentation. So I'm looking forward to see you in June at OTC 2013. Look for my workshop, and I'm looking very forward to have a lively interaction, a discussion with you, and about this particular topic, because I do believe that we have to find the most effective way how we deliver our online courses. So looking forward to you, and thank you very much for listening and for your interest, and please email me any of your questions. Thank you very much. Goodbye.